Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics, whose 2017-2018 run, a miraculous run as it were, has finally come to an end. And John, I think before we went on the air, you said, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it over with. We are basically recording post-game. This will go out on Memorial Day morning, but you and I are sitting here, instead of basking in the glory, we are soaking in our drinks, I guess, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you. I know we haven't broadcasted since Game 4's victory or loss, where we were down 2-2. But after the game home win in Game 5, 3-2, I still was telling everybody that I was talking to, I was like, I just don't like our chances. I just don't feel good about Game 6 on the road, and I definitely don't feel good about Game 7 at home with LeBron. Now, I do have some complaints for the officiating, but that was not as big of a factor as I thought it was going to be, and why I was feeling that way about Game 7. At the end of the day, just knocking down, not hitting three-pointers. I'm looking at you, Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier. Not knocking down those three-pointers certainly was the demise. And had they continued to work it inside, I think they would have been able to get a few more points on and a few more points on, and they might have been able to stake enough of a lead where they were comfortable. But the fact that had gotten cut down to 4 at the half, that's when it was foreboding for me. I did not like that look at all.
The second quarter was, I think, where things really started to go off the rails for the Celtics. They played well to start. You know, Cleveland battled back, and then really they closed the quarter strong, and you thought, okay, well, maybe they've kind of pushed back from Cleveland. Now they've learned something. They're ready to get going. In the second half, or I should say the second quarter, Tatum had stuff going a little bit, but the rest of the team felt really tight. Nobody was making shots. That was continuing from the first quarter. And I think, as you said, I think the Celtics kind of put themselves in such a bad position over and over and over again, where they just couldn't generate any consistent offense to speak of, which really was a consistent issue throughout the season. You know, those long periods where they just can't score. Now, every team has a vice. Every team has something that they're not good at. Cleveland couldn't stop it. I mean, Boston couldn't score on anybody. Unfortunately, it was the Celtics' inability to score in this game was the issue. And, you know, you thought home floor, you thought, you know, after, you know, Rozier shooting so well here in Game 6 that maybe that would carry over. Clearly that didn't happen. You know, Rozier going 0 for 3 from three-point land, Jaylen going 3 for 12. It's just not good enough. I mean, look, it's just not good enough. And the Celtics,
and
their
no ball
offense
movement.
was so stagnant.
No
exactly.
ball
Go ahead.
movement. I'm just going to, absolutely, like, as soon as the three ball wasn't falling, then they weren't getting the spacing and the ball movement stopped. And it's pretty much that simple. And Rozier really, I mean, Brown is going to take the brunt of this because he wasn't good. He had some nice defensive stops, but even following on Twitter, he's the one that most of the criticism is going to be leveled at for this loss. You can just see it. But Rozier was equally of an issue. When you saw Marcus Smart come in, and I saw you tweeting out during the game, you're like, this is the lineup. This is the lineup. And Marcus Smart probably deserved more minutes and even sooner in this game. I know the rest of the Twitterverse and ESPN seemed to think that he wasn't smacked up in his nose and in his grill by LeBron on that charge, but it was definitely an offensive foul. There's no doubt. But the game was a physical game. And I think that's part of the reason why the ball movement wasn't there, but it's not entirely. I mean, the two factors being lack of knocking down three-pointers and really it being a physical game are the two biggest reasons why we didn't see this team move the ball as much as they should. But they still had plenty of opportunities. They had that 1-5 pick and roll. We've heard about that a ton at halftime. That was working for them. Horford had an incredible adjustment on a lob from Terry Rozier that winds up throwing it down. And I know we're going to gobble up the highlight probably for the next 5 months of Jason Tatum posterizing LeBron James, which was an and one, by the way, and didn't go down that way. And then the ticky-tack fouls on Tatum going the other way. He followed up that dunk with a three-pointer, and you thought that might be the moment where they really lifted off. I actually think it got into Tatum's head a little bit that he bumped up on LeBron, and then maybe after he hit that three-pointer, things kind of sunk in a little bit. Do you think Cleveland really played that great of a defense, though?
No, this was not on Cleveland's defense. There's going to be a lot of, Cleveland, we heard during the broadcast, Cleveland's defense has really done a great job. Mike Breen, you would know great defense if it, spat in your face and said, my name is great defense. Mike Breen still sucks. No, of course not. This had nothing to do, there was a lot of great shots the Celtics missed. Now, those things tightened up as the Celtics stopped moving the ball. The shots weren't as great, but you're absolutely right. I mean, this was not, or I guess your question kind of belays, I think, what your opinion is, which is that this wasn't about Cleveland's defense. This had nothing to do with Cleveland's defense. The Celtics just couldn't make the shots that they've been making since mid-April. We've got almost 6 weeks where the Celtics were making these shots on a regular basis. And tonight, you have Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier going 3 for 22. I mean, that just didn't happen. That didn't happen anywhere else. Smart was 1 for 10 from the field. And those things, you take that backcourt and their inability to get any buckets at all. And, that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's 79 points. I mean, you looked at the score of this game, and it was like, have I gone on a time machine and I'm back in, 1996 again, and we're back to the Heat Knicks days and of terrible, dragging out basketball. This had nothing to do with LeBron James. This had nothing to do with the Cleveland Cavaliers, really.
That's a really good point.
The Celtics couldn't make shots. Bottom line, end of story. If you told the Celtics before this game that they were going to hold Cleveland Cavaliers to 87 points, they would start popping the champagne bottles and getting fitted for their Eastern Conference Finals champions hats and t-shirts. That's it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, LeBron, he definitely had some big shots, but they did execute the way they wanted to on LeBron. In Game 6, obviously he went off, but he was gassed in Game 5. I thought they should have made it a little bit harder on LeBron in Game 6. I kind of wanted Bane still out there. I wanted it to get physical for him just to wear him out. But we get to Game 7, and I thought they did an excellent job. I mean, they really kept him in check for the most part. I mean, he hit a big three, hit a couple of timely shots, but he had to do everything for this Cavaliers team through most of this game and still really didn't fully dominate the way that LeBron is capable of dominating a game, which means the Celtics did all the right things defensively. It does fall on the offense. It's really unfortunate because this one was well within their grasp, even with the, benefit that LeBron usually gets. I mean, even then, what did he have? 4 fouls? I mean, as much as I can be upset about that part of the officiating, you kind of had to say many other teams wouldn't have gotten the benefit that the Celtics did. So as far as history goes, they benefited well. I think the real complaint comes down to Al Horford just no contact. I mean, Tatum got hit several times too, but he's a rookie. And I don't agree with it in the league. I've never been a fan of, reputation calls and all of that drives me crazy, but Tatum's a rookie. We all gotta know going into this game that's the way it is. The disrespect for Horford down in the post and the way that he's able to be fouled and they don't care and they just let it go. That's frustrating. That's probably, if there was a disparity in the officiating for me, that's where it lied. And I definitely found that, a little bit a little bit aggravating, not even just in this game, but throughout the postseason. I feel like that's been the case. But I'll let you have a follow in a second, John. First, a reminder to everybody, you can follow Celtics Stuff Live on Twitter at CSL_tweetlive, as well as your host. Follow me at CSL_Justin. John is at CSL_Duke, the entire CLNS Media Network at CLNS Media, Facebook.com/CLNS fans, and download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace. And finally, the YouTube channel, youtube.com/CLNS Media. High definition and the last of the full-length locker room interviews and the Garden Report. So make sure you head over there and catch up the game wrap from Game 7 there at the Boston Garden, or TD Bank Garden. So, John, what's your thoughts on the Horford thing? Because it seemed to be plaguing us throughout the postseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's no respect there. And part of it is just the way he's shooting it. He's falling away. Oftentimes he's not, going through contact, whereas LeBron is going through contact, and so it earns the whistle. Yeah. But there's times in this game in particular, but we saw it throughout, but in particular this game where he just can't buy it. He can't buy it. And I'm okay with the officials swallowing the whistle in a seventh game more so than, normal. I don't really want to bring up the 2010 finals right now. This is probably the most painful loss for the Celtics since that night. So this is still a little bitter, but I think that, I don't think this is nearly on the officials as much, but that the disrespect that Horford probably is receiving on a number of calls is hard to take. It is hard to take. I think the real concern I have is, for 6 games, Tatum and Brown were being held around every screen, every, action that they were running, and no calls. We're just going to swallow that. And I think, just to your point earlier, which is, well, you're not going to give those guys respect. You can't have a real league if you can't make that call. I mean, if you can't just blindly look at whoever it is and then not worry about it, and make the call as it occurs, then that's what you should be doing. But over and over again, we see that's not the case. And, I'll point the finger at the Marcus Smart drawn charge where clearly there's contact made with the elbow on Smart's face. That, I think everyone sees that. You could argue whether or not he embellished or not, but there was a foul there that was called. Everyone, what is Marcus Smart's flopping again? Slow down. How many fouls has LeBron not gotten called for? He only got 4 fouls called on him through this whole game. And clearly, whether it's the Rozier block that they didn't call a foul but probably should have been, or on and on and on we go, he gets the benefit of the doubt on those things. And it's just the inconsistency between what Al Horford has done and what LeBron James is doing. You can't have a fair game if you're not calling the same game, whether they're a rookie, they're Al Horford, or they're LeBron James. Bottom line, you can't have a fair game in that case.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And the thing, too, is we all get so frustrated with LeBron because he's constantly got his hands in the air. He's constantly looking at the refs. He made that great block, and it disgusted me, and I think I can't remember which announcer. It might have been Mark Jackson. Might have been Van Gundy, but somebody said he stayed down the other end of the floor, didn't even go play offense, and
it was
stayed
a Rozier
there.
Block.
Right, it was a Rozier block, but I can't remember who.
Block.
Yeah, but I can't remember who. Yeah, who on ESPN. The announcer was like, I love it. LeBron James just standing back on D and staring him down through the whole offensive possession. I'm like, hold on a second. You think that's a good thing? That the best player on the team on offense doesn't hustle down and play offense? Like, that's the most, I can't remember which one of them said it. But
it was Mark Jackson.
It was Mark Jackson. I thought
so. Yeah,
so.
because they were arguing about whether or not Rozier should have dunked it or tried to dunk it, and yeah, it was Jackson. And, and shame on the Celtics. If you're playing 5-on-4, how the heck can you give up a foul on the other end?
Yeah, totally.
No, We're going to pivot this. We're going to talk a little bit about this game. We're going to pivot a little bit to the postseason, because I think, well, people want to talk about the game and talk about what happened in the series. They need a little bit of sunshine. They need to think about Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward joining that group on the floor to close. And knowing that if, Jalen and Rozier aren't making their shots, you've got, a guy who hit maybe the biggest three since Ray Allen's shot, on your team, joining your team and healthy. And Gordon Hayward, who, certainly can do a lot of things out there and make things work. And you can't switch on to him and create a incredible size mismatch, or not a much more, size mismatch. I mean, there's just so many ways in which this is going to work better this year. But for this series and what happened in these 7 games, it felt like, to me, the Celtics, they ran out of their offense. They ran out of that motion style that made them so good. And part of that was they cut their rotation down. They tried to work so hard into trying to find those mismatches. And then they'd fall out of those mismatches. There was a play, early, late in the second quarter. Celtics call a timeout shortly thereafter. Rozier, Jalen, and I think Tatum all touched the ball on the perimeter. Tatum is pointing down to Horford. Horford's got, George Hill in a mismatch on the opposite block. The ball has swung to the left side. Jalen's got it. And then I think he kicks it back to Rozier, and Rozier takes a kind of a bad jumper. It was that type of thing where playoff basketball, you've got to recognize the mismatch. And over and over in this series, Cleveland recognized the mismatch that they had, and they took advantage of it. They got the Rozier mismatch, and then they worked off of that, or on any number of different occasions. That savvy, the veteran savvy that Cleveland had, it wore out over 7 games. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not a better team than the Boston Celtics, but they're better in executing who they are and what they are. And that's why veteran teams win these series. It's why you should pick Cleveland to win these series. But Boston was better. Boston proved they're going to be there. Boston did everything they needed to do except make shots in the 7th game. If Terry Rozier and Jaylen Brown hit 3 more threes, they shoot, instead of shooting 3 for 22, they shoot 5 for 22. Celtics win the game. That's it. So let's win the game. Make 3 of those. If they went 5 for 22 instead of 3 for 22, still horrendous. They win the game. That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. If they had hit any of those 3-pointers and really 2 different players, there was a whole narrative out there about trade Kyrie. We've got Rozier and Smart, right?
It's
Let's
over.
open up that conversation has been shut down 100%, no doubt. Because honestly, just one other player on this team being able to, really get it done down the stretch. And that was why that crowd was quiet. We all knew it. There's not a big enough lead to win game 7 because we don't have a go-to player. And then we thought that go-to player emerged with about 6 minutes to go halfway through the 4th quarter, right? And it's the dunk on LeBron, and it's a big 3-pointer. And you're like, let's ride Tatum. But they put a lot of pressure on Tatum from that point on, right? Because you still didn't have what you needed to spread the ball around. Kyrie is somebody that would have been awesome to have him out there. And truthfully, Brown or Rozier have played in that moment, but I think I tweeted this out at one point was that, Brown's had a bad game. I think the worst thing is that I think Brown realizes he's had a bad game, like in the game. And I feel like that just became a cycle for him that he was having a hard time breaking out of, and really is evidenced by that just totally crazy 3-point shot as the game was already well in hand for Cleveland, and he drops in a swish from the corner, and it's like, yep, they just played too tight, I think. Some of them. Mm-hmm. Definitely not Tatum. But,
totally.
But Rozier and Brown just played too tight, too cautious. Smart was out there doing what Smart does, but you need Brown and Rozier with that confidence and playing loose to win a game 7 like this.
But let's look at, and that's why this was an important run. Okay, now I'm gonna put my, good ship lollipop.
No, I'm with you. Great learning lesson. Absolutely. We'll put the sulking behind us for Game 7 and say that's lessons young players need to learn. Even Tatum bumping up on LeBron.
Right.
A lesson to be learned. He had his hands in the air. He looked a lot like LeBron down the stretch. And, that's stuff we all got to learn.
I mean, the fouls, the touch stuff that they're calling on Tatum. I mean, look, this is where the game's got to change, because you breathe hard on somebody's ear and it's a foul on the perimeter, but you can, and I'm not just talking about Al Horford. This is really any part of the game. You need guys like Baines to bang somewhat with players on the post. That inconsistency is a problem in today's game. They need to figure that out, because that's part of the reason why you can run, LeBron at the 5, and then, 4 guards and wings. Is it fun? Yes. But what we ended up with, I don't think this series was all that enjoyable to watch, because all of Cleveland's offense amounted to was switching on to Rozier and having him try to back him down. I mean, we're back to 1995, or 1997, having Charles Barkley backing guys down from the 3-point arc. I mean, that's
a great point.
Ugly ball.
That's a great point. On offense, when the Cleveland didn't have it going, it just went to LeBron, and he literally it was like what a power forward would do in the 80s and 90s to get, really more than 90s, to get their back to the basket close enough to get their shot off. Only he's starting out at the 3-point line and just bang, bang, bang. And you're right. It's not exciting basketball. And truthfully, if the Celtics had hit 3-pointers today, it would have been exciting, because it would have opened things up. And that's what the league really wants. And it's also part of the reason why, everybody's a lot more entertained by the Western Conference. And I think the way that this Celtics team, just to put that, green colored glasses back on and half full the rest of the show, I do think that, the Celtics are designed to be a team like that, especially with Kyrie back at the helm and, a number of young guys, but particularly Tatum and still having Horford, et cetera. I think the ball movement's going to be spectacular next year. But real quick, first, if you wear contacts, then you know how annoying it is to have to get a prescription year after year just to be able to buy more contacts. And I think the officials in tonight's game could. Anyway, Simple Contacts is changing all of that by using technology to make renewing your prescription and buying contacts simple. And here's how it works. Using your phone or computer, you can take the Simple Contacts vision test in 5 minutes, literally anywhere. And a real doctor will review your test in 24 hours, write you a new prescription, and boom, a fresh supply of your brand new lenses on the way to your door. No more appointments, no more waiting rooms, no more overpaying. Simple Contacts brings the doctor's office to wherever you are, whenever you need it. It was super easy for me. I travel all the time. I got low on the contacts. I really didn't have time in my schedule to be able to go over and have the appointment. And lo and behold, Simple Contacts says they want to sponsor Celtics Stuff Live. I'm able to go online. I did all of it just like they said, super fast. Within a day, I had contacts on the way, and I needed them. It was just really an unbeatable experience that way. Simple Contacts offers every brand of lenses. Their prices are fantastic. The prescription is just $20. The lens prices are super competitive. Shipping is free. And best of all, our listeners get $30 off their first Simple Contacts order. So, to save $30 on your lenses, just go to simplecontacts.com/CSL18 or enter the code CSL18 at checkout. I do have to mention, though, that this isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need those occasionally, but it's the most convenient way to renew a prescription and reorder your contacts if your vision hasn't changed. Again, check out Simple Contacts. Get $30 off by going to simplecontacts.com/CSL18 or just enter the code CSL18 at checkout. Give it a try and thank me later. And John, I cut you off there, but I'll let you pick it right back up.
Well, I think what you had said is that, and you were kind of going down that road. You take a game like this a year from now. I'm not saying Eastern Conference Finals, but you have a game when Rozier's not hitting his shots and you've got Brown not hitting his shots. You have more options available to you. I mean, I'm not saying that Gordon Hayward's going to play every game. I'm not saying that Kyrie Irving's going to be playing every game, but you've got options in that case, and there's going to be times when someone's going to sit because someone's got it going on, whether it's Rozier's got it going on and you play him next to Kyrie, or you've got, Brown's doing well and you're going to sit. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of different things. The Celtics were playing with ridiculous. Forget the names are Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward and Daniel Tice and Shane Larkin. I mean, forget who we're talking about here. The Celtics were playing 7 guys. There was no going to the 8th guy. You are not going to Semi Ojeleye. You are not going to Abdel Nader. You're not going to Morris. To Monroe. I mean, there was no other option. So those guys missing those shots, there was no plan B for Brad Stevens.
No, do you think they got gassed?
He had to run it out there.
We talked about LeBron getting gassed, but do you think this team got gassed?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I think you shorten the rotation to 7 guys. You're playing every other day for a week straight, after playing for, 8 months straight. And a lot was on those guys. A lot was on them. I don't think that's why they lost the game. I think they just missed shots. But personally, I think the moment got to Brown, and I think the moment got to Rozier.
Totally. That's totally what I think happened as well. I'm with you 100%. Maybe they got a little gassed? Yeah. Fatigue is always setting in, but pretty young group. Usually they rise over that. But I agree with you 100%. I think the moment got in Rozier and Brown's head. It got in between their ears, and that's really where they struggled in the game. And but again, as you mentioned, it's a learning lesson. This is a really young team, and truthfully, Rozier will be able to be that spark plug off the bench. We're going to start talking very soon about what happens to Marcus Smart, right? Like, this is right around the corner. There's a lot of decisions to be made. Draft night, I'm sure we'll have another draft night show this year, even though the Celtics aren't going to be picking very high. This was a draft that we had our eyes on. So there's a lot to be coming. The rumors, Karl Anthony Towns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be filling up the off season, but I got to tell you, and this isn't just short term sentiment, from what just happened over the year and et cetera, but I don't want them to trade anybody. I'm perfectly happy. I understand that probably when Brown and Tatum's contracts come up, they're going to be in a little bit of a pinch. They might only be able to sign one of them. It kind of depends. I can't remember how it lines up exactly with Al Horford's contract, but I don't want them to trade anybody. I want to keep these young players. I know that they got a difficult decision on Marcus Smart, and if they don't make a trade, he's likely gone just because of the finances. But I really, as far as Brown, Tatum, trading, consolidation, it's the first time in a long time. I want to stand pat and see what happens next year.
I think that's what ends up happening. I think they're going to stand pat. I think they'll stand pat. I think they'll try to run back Smart. I think they'll try to run back Rozier and see what they can do.
You think they can afford Smart? I mean,
yeah. Well, yeah, because it sounds like it's close, and as long as they're not bringing back Monroe, if he's just signed the qualifying offer, that's not a whole lot more than what he's making right now. So they can absolutely afford Smart next year. The question is, does he get an offer sheet? And I can't imagine there's anybody out there right now who has a lot of money to spend and wants to bring in Marcus Smart and be the centerpiece. In this cap environment, I don't think it exists. So
definitely not
the centerpiece.
Definitely not the centerpiece.
I think the question is, do the Celtics want to trade Rozier now at his highest trade value that it will be? Or do they wait until maybe the deadline and try to flip him at that point? I think that's really the only question in my mind is whether or not they go that route.
Then is that,
Yeah, I think that's probably your best bet, is to try to get a pick, try to get a young player to add to this team that can, maybe somebody in the front court specifically, and try to find a way to make that work. You could combine it with your own pick, combine it with the Memphis pick, try to get in the top 10. There's a lot of talented big men, and this is a team that really doesn't have a lot of long-term big men. I mean, we're going into a year, Al Horford, this could be Al Horford's last year if he doesn't want to opt in. this is his third year of his contract that he's coming into, a 4-year deal, and the last year is a player option. So there's some
He's
Al
so
Horford
picking up that option
stuff.
though. Because what you think why would he leave? He can't really make that much more money at that point, right? I mean, he might be looking for an extension, but I would think he would play out his last year. Are you thinking he thinks he can get one more big deal if he opts out?
I think after the Philly series wherein he made the anointed next, supernova person, look like a complete fool, I think that probably has some value out there in the marketplace. Now he's 32. So, he's got next year and then he's got an option year, just like Kyrie basically. So, you got to think, Kyrie is, obviously a year away from free agency. I can't imagine they're going to do anything with him. Al's probably set. I think they're probably going to end up just extending Al and giving him a make good contract. Not a make good contract, but a lower probably annual salary, but some longer, a longer term, than maybe he might get on the market. We'll see. We'll see what happens. His market's very interesting.
Because then you're right. They could sign him to a longer deal than anybody would really want to, bring the numbers down and use that to bolster the bench. And like
Gasol. Gasol is kind of the comp where he's gotten these longer deals from, first Chicago, but also from San Antonio. Maybe not as much money at the top end, but longer years. And that's given him a little bit more flexibility, but also it gives him maybe, some more consistency in what he could be getting as an older big man.
Well, and he'd be able to play on a team that's still going to be good because you've got all that youth, and that's really the deal is they've got to be able to re-sign those guys. So maybe that's worth it to him is to say, listen, I like the coach, I like the chemistry, I like the squad, so I'll take a little bit less money, but I want all that money made up, tacked on to the end of the contract. Then I know I'm just going to be here. And truthfully, if he gets that kind of duration on the contract, he knows he's going to be playing for the mid-level exception and all that in his later 30s, right? He's not going to be getting, big contracts at that point. So, what is it to him, other than guaranteed money now versus spread out? I think he would definitely do it. I like where you're going with that. What about Kyrie though? I mean, I would think it's kind of a dicey thing because you would have thought that the extension would have been negotiated this summer, and then we have all this injury stuff. I think it's still a safe play. I mean, it sounds like the surgery was really something that should have been maintenance and slightly complicated rehab, but I don't know that there's really a big time concern about his ability to come back fully. I mean, if he was a leaper, like out of the gym jumper, and that was how his game was, impacted, then I'd be nervous, right? If his game was all athleticism, and I'm not saying he's not an athlete, he is, but there's so much he does with the ball, and the athleticism isn't necessarily just quickness or jumping. A lot of it is knowledge of the game. His he's got that, ability to just put spin on the ball. Those are things that I don't think go away. And so he could be a safe play for extension this summer just fine. Do you think they'll work towards that extension despite the surgery?
I don't think they'll do anything until next year. I think they'll go through the year. Not to say they don't trust the surgery, not to say they don't trust that his knee's healing fine. I think it probably is doing just fine. Obviously there was an issue. You and I talked about, whether or not whether there's some infection in there, what have you. It seems though that was the primary concern. I don't think that's going to be the issue. I think it's more of a question of, okay, where are we going from here? And I think we got to talk a lot about Tatum and Brown. Brown not shooting the ball well, sure, but he's 21 years old. Okay. LeBron wasn't doing this stuff when he's 21. Tatum is 19. Now he's 20. What he's doing is amazing. Okay.
No, he's a total keeper.
You've got to talk about those guys are the centerpiece
he's got
of
the
the
cojones,
team.
dude.
They're the team.
Yeah, they are.
All right. They are the team. So everything you're doing now to me is built around that. It's not built around Kyrie. It's not built around Hayward, and it's not built around Horford. Those two guys are the centerpiece of what this is. And I don't think that's just what have I seen lately. I just saw, Jaylen Brown go, 3 for 12, okay, from 3-point land, probably his worst game of the playoffs by far. But those two guys are the centerpiece.
Yeah, but how many games did he knock down 15 points in the first quarter and set the tone? And, yeah, absolutely. They need an opportunity to develop together. And it's all predicated on what they've been trying to do here, which is all of that length, athleticism, switchability, and they do different things well. I was surprised too, just going to tack this on, but nobody really saw Tatum as a defender. And I thought he played fantastic defense in this series. But all year long, the blocking of the shots, there were moments where there were breakdowns for sure. But by and large, he's a way better defender than advertised. I thought we were always going to be talking about Tatum's the offensive piece and Brown's the defensive piece. And then Brown wound up having a much more complete offensive package this year for the most part, when he was knocking down threes and he was a little bit more controlled in his drives to the paint, although that definitely, again, bad on both accounts in Game 7. But I thought he was going to be kind of the defensive specialist and Tatum was going to be the offensive guy, and each one of them has a lot more elements to the other end of the court than I think we realized either of them had.
Yeah, Sorry, I just got struck by what the hell just happened tonight. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I had a good answer to your comment, but it just hit me.
Oh, it just hit you, like you really realized that the season's over, huh?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Where are you headed with that, Justin? I was just...
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Oh, frig.
Yeah, dude, it's a bummer. It's a bummer because this was a pretty,
This was a fun year.
It was a fun year. And to imagine them
so terribly.
To imagine them in the finals. Yeah, it was really a bummer of a game. It wasn't exciting.
Close.
Nobody around the league, I know you want to be positive, dude, but I just don't think tonight's the night. Because nobody around this league watched that and went, ooh, I can't wait. Other than the Tatum moment, nobody was watching that game tonight outside of New England going, oh, I can't wait for the Celtics to be in it next year with, you know what I mean? Because the entertainment value was low. It was real. I mean, I'm not trying to kick the crap out of our guys, because it's been a very entertaining season. The comeback victories, the storylines, so many good things. But that's not what you want a Game 7 to look like. There isn't anybody in the league who wanted to watch a Game 7 like that tonight.
No, but look, I mean, this wasn't the most attractive game, but that's what happens in a league where the 3-point shot is what it is. I mean, if you get teams that just go cold, they go cold. And look, the Celtics are good at making teams miss 3-pointers. We've talked about that all through the season. So that's not a surprise that the Celtics couldn't hit the broadside of the barn, particularly their backcourt. That was probably the bigger issue going into it, and that they didn't have enough guys who could shoot them. I mean, that's the other thing. Horford took one. I mean, how many 3-pointers did he have in that series? That was a key play for them in both the Milwaukee and Philly series. They could not get him open on the arc at all. I mean, I'll say this. Let's give Cleveland credit in terms of how they defended Horford. While he had a great, start of the series, they were able to really take him out of his ability to pick and pop. And by taking that away, it took a big part of the Celtics offense with it. Now, they're not going to have that luxury next season because the Celtics are going to have more dangerous shooters and probably the most devastating guy going from top of the key to the basket in the league in Kyrie Irving. So it's not going to work the way they had it working this year. But look, here we are, and we've got, I think a great run. We got way more out of this. I know you don't want it, I know people are frustrated, but I'm going to try to pick it up because look,
Dude, you're all over
in,
the map. You're back and forth.
Dude, 5 minutes in. 5 minutes into the series, this whole season, right? I mean, it was over, right? We're just like, let's hope we just make the playoffs. We all get something out of it. And by the end, we've got Jason Tatum yammering in LeBron James' face in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, we got way more of this season than we should have ever expected.
We kept saying,
even if everyone was healthy, if we were in Game 7 with LeBron, we would have felt pretty good about where that left us. The fact that what happened and where that puts us, we are so far ahead of the curve. We're so far ahead of Philly. We're so far ahead of Milwaukee. And we're so far ahead of a Cleveland team that was gasping and begging for us to put it out of its misery. We are in good shape, folks. We're in good shape, Celtics fans. It sucks tonight. It really sucks because 3 more 3-pointers and we're going to the finals. And with a chance to beat the Houston Rockets with old CP3 on one leg. It could happen. Now it could be the Warriors too, and you lose by 50 in every game. But there are so many opportunities here. This is not. I know we want to look at it and say, what if? What if this happened to the Celtics? They should have done this. They should have. Look, realistically, the fact we get out of the first round was a huge plus. We put a big hurt in our biggest rival long term by winning the second round series. And in the third series, we went toe to toe with LeBron James. And we took him to 7 games. And Philip,
with a 3-2
not
lead.
This short, but this short.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
you're right. And we've basically run out of time, but I think you summed it up nicely. We said, well, there was a couple of things that we said over the course of the year, but at the very beginning of the postseason, you said we're playing with house money, which I totally agreed with. And, everything from here on out's kind of gravy on top because, 6 minutes into the year, we thought the season was over in many respects. Then they wound up being one of the best defensive teams in the league. They totally carved out to a league-leading record through a third of the season. It was incredible. And then we get into the postseason and the Milwaukee series. I mean, I almost turned off the postseason for that one, as you know. But, we also said after those 2 matchups against Houston that, boy, this would be a great finals. Of course, we would have thought that Kyrie was playing, but boy, what a different spin on the finals if it were Houston and Boston. And we really almost got a chance to see that, which would have been really amazing. So I guess what I'm looking forward to, then we'll wrap the show next season, and we'll talk about, a lot of this in the off season. We've got many shows between now and training camp again coming up. But I think, for me, I'm just thinking Kyrie, Brown, Tatum, Hayward, Horford. I really think that starting 5 is going to do, look at it. Your 5th option is Brown. And this is a guy that was scoring 20 to 30 points a night, getting you through the postseason. That's fantastic to think that he might be the 5th option. Probably he'll be the 4th option because Horford's so selfless, but that's an amazing, we talked about this Game 7 not having enough offense, but you take those 2 players, add them back into this mix, you think about that starting 5, offense is not going to be the issue. They're going to be able to explore for the hot hand every single night. They're going to be rested. Nobody's going to have to do what LeBron has had to do year after year with that Cleveland Cavaliers team. And that's going to be exciting basketball, especially because I think they're all bought into, what Brad's teaching with the whole team unity. Everybody plays together, and that's going to be exciting for next year. You and I will be back next week. I think we're going to have CLNS Media founder Nick Gelso joining us to wrap the season, take a look at the off season. Not sure we're going to see the fireworks this year the way we have, but there's definitely some stuff on the table there. I hope they don't do it. I hope it's the most boring off season in history for the Boston Celtics when we come back next year and we take this what could have been and these what ifs that have been plaguing our dialogue this entire season and put it into fruition for next year. But that's going to do it for this week's show. As a reminder, the broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in. And remember, you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. future. We'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review because your feedback is important to the show. And for staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtics Stuff Live.
Celtics Stuff Live.